I know we've had some sort of sense of live when we've talked about consequences, but we should all have a crack at this. Okay, so that's what we're up to. So have a go.
Because it's a scenario, so to make the discussion more focused, we are going to focus on the community engagement aspect of this case, because there is a lot of risks and issues.
Would you be going?
If it were junket, yes. You mean if there was work involved, I'd send Nigel. Oh, gosh.
Okay, if you have any.
This is not an unreasonable exercise. I mean, this has, I'm pretty certain I can think of parallels on this one.
Yeah.
If not the exact thing, certainly situations like this before. So what's the best way to approach this, folk? Got any views, Alan?
I have.
Go for it. No, seriously, be great to hear your thoughts,
I
man.
guess, you know, if they're having to ask themselves these questions at the end, they should have actually made a better decision right at the very start. So anything that you should be, if you think you have to answer to, you actually shouldn't be embarking on it. That's been a poor decision. So, yeah, I guess openness is actually the most important thing. Yeah.
So, sorry, Alan, just so that I've got this correct, what you're reflecting on here is if you had sat down at the start and foreseen what were the risks, you wouldn't do it. Yeah.
I guess tried to be more transparent so you didn't have to explain yourself when you came back.
Yeah, okay. Yes, if you've got to, as I think we all know, if you have to explain in the media, you've probably lost it. So I agree entirely in that sense. Nigel, what's your views, mate? I'm going to Janice next. Janice, just to warn you before I ask Mark and Paul.
Yeah, no, look, first I'd be sending Councillor Booth to the junket, so it doesn't come back. But look, I mean, there's some questions that or answers that you don't know. You don't know if the public were aware of the Chinese delegation coming out originally, and so if they were there, then there might be, you know, a basis for moving forward. But it's a, you know, it's a golden opportunity for any. You know, if it was a small, take an example, probably not a great example, provincial New Zealand, but a rural New Zealand or Waitangi or something, look at the considerations that they're making. You know, a waste plant, actually, if something like this came to them, they'd think it was Christmas, and they'd probably, you know, bend over backwards to make it happen in a small community where jobs are needed. You know, it might be actually quite popular. So it's a real hard one to know. I think the key point that Alan made is how you be transparent along the process. So that Ahmed's point is that's where the, you know, level of risk lies, is in that community engagement, and there's lots of flow-ons, you know, cost of council, all those sort of things. A provincial council might be able to afford this, a rural council might not. You know, tax rebates, all those, or rate rebates, all those sorts of things are interesting challenges. But look, I mean, I don't think there'd be many councils across the country that, you know, this is a lamp factory, it's not a waste incineration plant, that they'd be pretty keen to consider it.
So that almost makes it sound like the risk is worth it.
Yeah, very much so. Yeah, it's just how you take people on the journey, to Alan's point, isn't it?
Janice?
Well, at the risk of saying there's not enough information.
So you never have. You never have complete information on this one.
Yeah,
It's quite live, or real, I should say.
Yeah, it is.
yeah, it's the community engagement and the potential reputational risk, I guess. But I would be taking the first step and exploring it a bit further.
Cautious. Good doing, Paul. You going? You going?
Oh, I'm a little bit risk averse. I might, like you say, I think transparency, but maybe even empowering your economic development agency to take some of that away from council might reduce the risk to reputation there. So empowering or funding them to do that as a one-off might be an option. But yeah, I'm with you guys on the transparency and taking them with you. Yeah.
I'd be going, and I guess it's part of...
It'll be you and me, Mark, so
Yeah, yes.
we're both signed up,
Okay,
we're
we're
away.
signed up, we're signed up, we're signed up. We're going to make some dosh out of this, Chris. And I guess it does come down to the point that there isn't enough information, and one of the ways of getting information is to actually go out and dig for it. And I don't think councils do enough of that, particularly in that economic development space. It's clearly already part of a regional growth strategy, so there's already a mandate for council to actually grow its economic activity. Absolutely an issue with transparency and community engagement. Where we see the most kickback is where people are ill-informed or badly informed or not informed at all. But I think it does need to be part of a wider investigative process, so not just a foregone conclusion or the appearance that this is just ticking the box to align with that particular entity, but definitely part of a much wider strategy.
Yeah, and if you're going, what else can you do while you're there, and how can you broaden it? And it's always a difficulty as to at what stage you have that transparency, because sometimes that can scupper the very opportunity.
I took it at face value, by the way. I mean, I agree. I mean, it's difficult not to agree. You wouldn't like more information. But it struck me that the factors around this decision is the speed with which you've got to make a decision, right? I mean, you haven't got a lot of time to act. I want to use that word risk. The impact could be community pushback because they think actually the money should be spent somewhere else. They don't like, at a very simplistic level, the fact that it looks like a junket when, you know, we might be going up with the best of intentions. So just trying to use our risk statements, it struck me that the risk that this would go a wee bit pear-shaped was likely and the impact would be major, which according to our heat risk it makes it high risk. But I've also said to you I'm prepared to take a bit of risk with stakeholders to grab the opportunity, and I said that was high. So my quick decision making was, I'll do it. No, in all seriousness, I mean, I make a joke about it, but in some sense, that's what I'd be reflecting. I mean, look, I agree that actually I'd want to know, you know, have we bolted in that change in the economic development strategy, the 356 or whatever number is being pulled away from some, you know, have we had that right debate with the community or with the business, whoever in our community, that actually a reorientation towards this would be helpful to know whether we had that in place, because that actually makes it more explainable.
I don't know if I fully trust Joy at this stage, but only time can tell.
So Nigel, what would you have done?
I agree with your last part. My assumption will be that the council debated their economic development strategy and they put aside 365k as a budget, and all we are doing right at the moment is committing to $50,000 to go and research this potential opportunity, which I believe that has a low risk, because you're not committing to anything. You're not committing to the 10 million yet. You're actually gathering information to go, does this, with this additional information, does it fit with our economic development strategy in terms of, we're saying manufacturing, what does manufacturing really mean? And then you would start working up, is this a doable option or not? So right at the moment from this, the risk appears to me to be pretty low. We're committing 50k of the 365k we put aside to go and investigate something that might lead to something quite smart.
I wouldn't disagree in one sense, but actually I see the risk is actually a lot higher than low. I mean, the front page, going back to Alan's point, the front page test on us spending 50 grand in Timaru to go to China is high.
Yeah.
That is not a low risk exercise
But
to
it's
justify.
not the 50 grand, it's the lack of community engagement.
Oh,
the
no,
reputation.
sorry, I think I agree with you on that one. Sorry, I should be careful. I just jumped over the top of you there, Janice. I was thinking about the 50 grand as being the immediate spend in the sense that you're talking about, Nigel, as being the most immediate impact. But actually, I would suggest the Timaru community would be very sensitive to us even spending the 50 grand.
Why would you have a budget of 365 that's been approved?
If they were going to sign it, if the due diligence had been done and the agreement was going to be signed and celebrated by whoever, and after you'd done an MOU and the agreement was on the table and it was a matter of signing to travel to sign the deal with the investor, that would be acceptable, and you'd have an outcome when you came back. But if it was simply going over there to meet the investor, well, and for an investment here, that's stupid, especially if it doesn't come off. And so if the investor can't come over here and take a look at the opportunity and draw up an MOU, you've got bugger all. So that's where you take a look at your risk and what is the point.
Yeah, there's a few things in there. This is the problem. I think Mike made the point that, you know, we don't see some of these things as our core business, but we'd all like them to happen. And, you know, we talk about our economic development agency being more front-footing and, you know, what are the businesses that aren't in our district and what are the businesses that should be here. And, you know, I've got a view, it certainly isn't from the mayor going out, but it would sit with economic development to actually go around New Zealand and meet with some of those businesses that are here. So in that regard, I think actually we should be spending money on that. I think the challenge that you've got in here, this is probably quite a normal way for, and the longer, slower burn of the Chinese culture that you've got in here, and that's probably misunderstood by a lot of New Zealanders, but it's actually the way that you would probably do business, and you would send someone of notable, you know, because it would be insulting if you know, potentially sent anyone less. So it's quite complex in that regard. But, you know, it's a interesting one to think around how we should be approaching these things. And using your tools. And, you know, the reality is your mayor and elected members are tools that we should probably be using because they can help drive economic development. Anyway, case study. Let's get some real examples.
Well, actually, these are.
Yeah, they probably are.
You know, I go way back 2 years ago, was at Waitaki, and they're probably you were an auditor in those days, Nigel, wanting to do business, one of the early ones with Chinese. What was going to be north of Oamaru? I can't remember what it was that was going to be developed. This is real. Plastic factories on the West Coast, signing up with Australians. You know, this is socks at Westport. A bunch of this sort of stuff goes around the place, believe you me. Hey, that's really helpful. I mean, I think what's interesting here, if I can just make an observation, is and this, by the way, is not a criticism or a critique or even a reaction, but, you know, a lot of us just approach this from it was interesting, just a gut reaction. But I think the thing that we could do better in this discussion, apart from the more information and yada, 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 all that sort of stuff, is actually, it is an exercise in risk. Or rather, risk can help us make the decision. I think that's the point I should make. It isn't the exercise in risk. Risk doesn't dominate the world, but it does actually influence how we could think about our decision making. So that makes ArcMed I mean, I think that's really useful because I think then it actually makes the stuff that we're asking you in SLT to build on now is something that we can bring back and make it live Timaruised will actually really strengthen us in terms of our thinking around risk and actually how it should influence decisions, investment in time and space would make a lot of sense. Is that it, mate? Have we got through there?
That's the end of the workshop. Thank you for coming, and if you have any questions.
Well, look, can I, perhaps final say to me, look, firstly, thank you.
Before you leave,
thank you to...
Can you give me the risks?
Oh, we can give you those. I don't know, you might not want mine. Broad stuff on it. I think I've just added cyber and said, let's get 7 and 12 together. I don't think mine would be of any value. But can I, look, it was remiss of me, Nigel, not to welcome you, actually. I know I'm in your place, but Firstly, just great to have you on board. It's always a tricky time when you face a transition. The fact that it was being, appointment well made, Nigel, and given us reasonably seamless transition from Bede to you. It's tremendous to have you here for the meeting as well. So hopefully, and I would probably say this on behalf of Janice as well, particularly as the independents, great that we've got the Chief Executive here. And I'm also conscious that as I have my little ongoing contact, given we talk about risk, it's actually great, Andrea, to get your email the other day about our credit rating, which actually is good. Credit ratings around the country are under pressure, are under significant pressure. So the fact that we've held ours, Nigel, as stable is actually really good news in one sense. It certainly you should do your LTP, Nigel. Too many Nigels. With the LTP knowing that credit, well, perhaps you shouldn't impair the credit rating, might be the key point. But that was great news as well to see that, given the challenges of the last couple of years as we've tried to work through annual reports and think planning and what have you. It's tremendous to see that as well. So well done, and it's great. So look, thank you for that. Ahmed, thank you for your time. I do really, I'm conscious that we're giving you more work, but I think it will help with that maturity journey, and we'll certainly pick that one up when it comes to the next risk committee. I think Janice reminded me also that we were probably at some point going to workshop also, it's risk-related, our insurance strategy. Am I correct in that? Janice, just remind me what we'd agreed. You quite rightly reminded me of when we called that we should be doing something around insurance.
Well, this workshop was originally for risk and insurance, and we were going to take a more strategic look at insurance, weren't we, and the amount of risk that we might adopt or not.
But for the insurance, because Aon, the one who's coming, have some emergency and he couldn't able to join, so it will be part of the audit risk.
Thank you. Yeah, I think that was the point. Yeah.
Insurance report.
So I think the critical thing for us is that actually we do need to recognise we need to do something thoughtful around our strategy before placement is made this year. And again, hello, great to have this exercise and start thinking about what's our appetite, because it's going to be a key question when it comes to our strategy around insurance. So that's really good. Can anybody tell me the date of our first meeting? Sorry, sorry, 4th of March? Yes, so it's not too far away, Andrea, is it? Yeah, no, that's tremendous. So 4 March, we'll reconvene and see where we're at. Good. Hey, thank you, Ahmed. Thank you, everybody, for coming. That's great. And to the elected members, thank you for coming too. Do appreciate that as well.